I wasn't born here in this country. I was born in Vietnam. My mother, who is actually, by definition, she is a farmer. She was a farmer. She grown rice, vegetables, and then she would, harvest those things and take it to the market and sell it. My father was classified as an MIA, missing in action, during the Vietnam War. I never know him. We were very poor. We didn't have much, but of course we have each other. Right, so I have my mom and my sister, who is about 5 years older than I am. We own a house back then, but it's more like a hut. The walls made out of wood, but it's like a plank wood. The floor is out of mud. So when it's raining outside, it's also raining inside. And when it rains, the floor is pretty muddy. But also back then, we were told that there's such a place called America. Even the poorest of the poorest could have an opportunity to have an education. Where I went in Vietnam, there's no such thing. In the late 1980s, there is a huge escape of Vietnam. And we tried to escape as a family twice, but wasn't successful. And every time we get caught, the government would take her properties away. As a single mom, she can only withstand so much of that, but she never gave up. So the third time we're going to do this, it's going to be a little bit different. It's only going to be one of us. And it's scheduled for my sister to go. Middle of the night, the smuggler came to the house, knocked on the door, and said it's time to go. And my sister decided that she doesn't want to go. So now what? There is no refund, right? You pay, there's no refund. Either you are going or you're not. So my mother looked at me and asked me if I wanted to go. So I decided to go. I told my mother that I would do it, without knowing that potentially this is a one-way ticket. Without knowing that in my adolescent life, when I believed that I would need my mom the most, she will not be there. So through the night, we ran into rice paddies, water, mud. Then we eventually get onto a little canoe, and toward the morning, get out to the fishing boat. The boat ran out of oil. As you can imagine, a boat without heading any direction is floating. So the wave is just rocking, right? Just back and forth, back and forth. So I was so sick. I was so sick. Every day they would give us a little pinch of water, a little rice, and to keep us alive, I suppose. By the fourth night, there was a big ship on the horizon. Thanks goodness, somebody on that boat carried me up into the ship. I remember it. It's like it happened yesterday. And the ship was heading to Singapore. And my mother, one of the things that she gave me was all my father's military paper. I gave all the paperwork to the American embassy. I really think that because my father, he was in the military and he fought along with the American, they treated me as a priority kid, and I could have went anywhere in the world, but of course I choose America. Then I ended up in Peoria, Illinois, at an orphanage place. 6 months later, they found me an American family, a foster family, in Havana, Illinois.
He didn't have nothing. And he come over, and we went pick him up in Peoria, and he had one outfit.
My parents, my mom and dad here, hired a tutor. For the next 2 years, I stayed back after school every day, from after school to 5:30, and this retired teacher would take me back home. She sat down, she break out the alphabet, teach me how to put it together, and I was determined that I'm going to learn. I'm going to focus on what I have at hand. Basically close my Asian culture, my Vietnamese culture, close that door, open another door into a surviving mode.
Hieu really did a lot. And I could tell him do something today, tomorrow he knows how to do it again. He can do anything like that.
I started to think that, you know what, my mother gave up a lot of things for me to be here. Why not do the best that I can? Through my high school years, it was breezy. I was living the dream. And Havana, small town, sometimes you get to the stigma of, you know, they don't like anybody else but them, right? But not Havana, this small town. They treated me just like one of the, when I went to college, I went to Monmouth. And one day, I came home, I come to the dormitory, and I ran downstairs and was playing video games and other things with my friends. And my roommate knew about my story. And he ran downstairs, he's like, Hieu, you got a phone call from your mom. In his most serious tone of voice, he's like, no, it's your mother in Vietnam. So, I was just, everything's dropped. Because, remember, I lost touch with them. I have not talked to her since I was in Singapore, Peoria, 2 years in middle school, 4 years in high school. I have not talked to her. I was living the dream. I was trying to survive. And it just, I dropped everything, I ran upstairs, and I say hello, and I tell you, her voice is just like she sat next to me. I recall. But the problem is I couldn't speak. I lost the language because I didn't practice it. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, I closed down my Asian culture, my Vietnamese, opening the door, survived. I was surviving. So we continue to rekindle our relationship. Once again, I told my mom and dad here, and they're very supportive of it. They continue to encourage me to stay in touch with them. And matter of fact, the Christmas between my junior and senior year in college, they paid for me to go back to Vietnam. The first time for many years to reunite with my family there. That knowing that I may not come back. So I went for about 1 month, and then I came back. When I left Vietnam there, basically the second time for my mom, she was devastated. So even though I graduate college, there's another burden that is on my shoulder. You know, as I get married and families and things like that, right? In the situation I'm at, my wife doesn't speak Vietnamese and my kids doesn't speak Vietnamese either. I want to be able to introduce them to my biological mom.
With us going back to Vietnam, I was happy that my kids were able to see what it was like. And even for me too, I mean, it's an eye-opener. I mean, you don't expect, like, it's a true third world country. I think he's worked really hard to get where he is.
It was a wonderful experience. We stayed with them for about 2 weeks to just basically validate to my mom that even though she's not around and I'm halfway around the world, that what she taught me and what she put into me wasn't going to waste.
I'm proud of him because he's did what he needed to do, and I never heard nothing out of him. He always did what he's supposed to do.
I don't know. It's amazing, really. It's just seeing where he come from to where he's at now. It's amazing.
I'm really proud of that boy. He's a good man.
You know, I realize that Vietnam is not really where I belong anymore. You know, in the United States, here's where my home is now.